No one could have predicted how one ordinary flight would change lives forever. Alicia, a single black mother with two bright-eyed children, boarded the plane early in the morning. Excitement for a new adventure danced in the kids' eyes, while Alicia scanned the rows, hoping for a smooth journey. From the moment the female crew member, Grace, approached Alicia's row, tension shimmered in the air. Grace's impatient tone felt unsettling, but Alicia shrugged it off, assuming the stress of holiday travel had gotten to everyone. She offered a polite smile, hoping to ease the situation. Little did anyone know, an undercurrent of resentment was brewing. Despite Alicia's warm demeanor, Grace couldn't stop herself from staring critically at the family. Other passengers sensed the discomfort, but nobody wanted to intervene, at least not yet. The stage was quietly set for an incident no one would soon forget. Each minute in that cabin would build toward a confrontation that would catch everyone by surprise. Tension was rising, yet no one noticed. Inside the cabin, Alicia's children wiggled in their seats, eager to watch the clouds pass by. She gently reminded them to buckle up, sensing their mounting excitement. Meanwhile, Grace paced the aisle, eyes flicking disapprovingly at Alicia's row. It was almost as if she was looking for a reason to criticize. An announcement crackled overhead, requesting all passengers to settle. The hum of the engines grew louder, signaling the plane's imminent takeoff. Grace returned with a forced smile and a tray of plastic-wrapped blankets, but her tone remained cold. She reminded Alicia that excessive movement could disrupt the other passengers. Alicia's face tightened. She tried to brush off the remark, reassuring her kids that they were allowed to feel excited. Observers quietly whispered their concerns, but stayed glued to their seats. Everyone sensed something was off, but no one dared to speak up. Beneath that forced civility, Grace's hostility was simmering. Alicia wondered why she was being singled out. The tension was building, and the flight was only just beginning. Minutes after takeoff, Alicia's younger child accidentally spilled a small cup of juice. Alicia calmly reached for tissues, but Grace swooped in with a glare. She scolded the child sharply, complaining about the mess, and warning Alicia to keep her kids under control. An uneasy hush fell over nearby seats. In a lower voice, Alicia requested understanding. She explained that children sometimes have accidents. However, Grace refused to back down, making a show of dabbing at the spill as though it was a major disaster. Passengers exchanged worried glances. Tension was building like a thundercloud overhead. No one spoke, yet everyone felt the hostility. Alicia's older child looked up, frightened by the sudden anger. Feeling cornered, Alicia tried to maintain composure. Inside her, questions stormed. Why was Grace so hostile? Was there a deeper reason behind her harsh behavior? The cabin lights flickered gently, as though acknowledging the unspoken drama. The atmosphere was charged, and it was clear this was only the beginning of an unsettling journey. Something big loomed. Some time passed as the plane reached cruising altitude. Alicia tried to distract her children with coloring books, but they remained uneasy. Grace hovered nearby, her gaze fixed on the family. She seemed to take offense at every innocent noise, every restless movement. Passengers began to shift nervously, sensing a confrontation on the horizon. Finally, Grace confronted Alicia in a firm voice, stating that her children were being too disruptive. Alicia explained politely yet firmly that she was doing her best to keep them calm. She mentioned they were traveling to finalize some family business, personal matters that had been stressful for them all. Grace cut her off with a harsh gesture, drawing hushed gasps from those seated nearby. This was no ordinary in-flight disagreement. Something about Grace's tone felt personal. Alicia's heart pounded, uncertain how to de-escalate the growing conflict. Under the bright overhead lights, Grace's stern expression revealed a resentment she could no longer hide. Meanwhile, Alicia prepared herself for the worst that might still come. Tension surged, unrelenting. Moments later, the unthinkable happened. Alicia asked Grace for assistance with her older child's seatbelt, but Grace snapped back. Instead of helping, She accused Alicia of being inconsiderate. Tensions reached a breaking point when Grace suddenly raised her hand and struck Alicia across the face. A stunned silence gripped the cabin. Alicia's children burst into tears, and nearby passengers stood up in alarm. It all happened in a flash. Grace, fuming, had done the unforgivable. She yelled harsh words, something about people like you always causing trouble, leaving no doubt that her aggression was fueled by prejudice. Alicia, shaken and humiliated, covered her stinging cheek. Her thoughts swirled with shock. How could this happen on a commercial flight, in front of everyone? Some passengers moved forward, ready to intervene, while others fumbled for their phones to record the incident. The tension that had been building now erupted into chaos, with seats creaking and voices rising. In that moment, it seemed like the entire plane was on the brink of complete turmoil. Before anyone could react, Grace grabbed the collar of Alicia's blouse, tearing the fabric in a rage. Gasps echoed through the cabin. Alicia's children clung to her, trembling. In the midst of the chaos, a few brave passengers tried to pull Grace away, but she shouted, "Mind your own business!" Fear and outrage coursed through the onlookers. Some demanded that the pilot be notified immediately. The commotion spread like wildfire, with more passengers standing up to protest Grace's actions. Yet, her fury seemed unstoppable. She lunged again, trying to intimidate anyone who dared to intervene. A flight attendant from the back of the plane rushed forward, attempting to calm Grace, but found her unresponsive to reason. Alicia, her clothes partially ripped, shielded her crying children. She struggled to understand why she was being targeted so viciously. In that moment of pure turmoil, it felt like the flight crew had lost all control. Little did Grace know, her actions would soon come back to haunt her in unimaginable ways. Trouble brewed. At last, the captain's voice boomed through the intercom, commanding everyone to remain seated. The flight attendants formed a barrier around Alicia and her children, trying to restore order. Meanwhile, whispers circulated among the passengers. Who was this woman, and why did Grace's animosity burn so fiercely? Then, in a hushed exchange, a fellow traveler recognized Alicia. She revealed to another passenger that Alicia was the widow of the airline's founder. After her husband's passing, Alicia had quietly inherited shares, giving her partial ownership. This trip was intended to confirm her legal rights, not to provoke trouble. As the news spread, eyes widened in disbelief. Realizing the gravity of her actions, Grace stood frozen with shock. It dawned on her that the woman she had humiliated might hold significant power within the very airline she worked for. Despite the chaos, Alicia remained composed, though tears glistened on her cheeks. The revelation changed everything, setting the stage for consequences that would shake the entire flight crew's future. Everything would shift now. Upon landing, an immediate investigation ensued. Airline management rushed onto the plane, quickly gathering witness statements and reviewing any recorded footage. Word of the incident had traveled fast, and corporate officials were determined to address the crisis. Meanwhile, a shaken Alicia consoled her children, anxiously awaiting the outcome. Grace, pale and nervous, was escorted off the aircraft. Her bravado melted under the harsh glare of her superiors. She realized the grave mistake she had made, especially after learning about Alicia's connection to the airline. Passengers who had witnessed the assault were eager to speak up, condemning Grace's actions as both violent and discriminatory. A representative from the airline approached Alicia, apologizing profusely and promising that swift corrective measures would be taken. Their words carried urgency. The company could not afford a scandal involving racism or physical violence. Behind the scenes, legal teams braced for fallout. Though Alicia had every right to press charges, she remained quiet, her gaze focused on protecting her children first and foremost. Silence weighed heavily there. The next day, Grace was summoned to a disciplinary hearing at the airline's headquarters. A panel of executives, along with legal advisors, reviewed the evidence. Shaken and remorseful, Grace listened to testimonies detailing her violent outburst and hateful remarks. The airline delivered a strict notice. Her job was on the line, pending further investigation. Outside the hearing room, Alicia sat quietly with her children. She had been asked to provide a statement. When she entered, the panel offered their sincerest apologies, emphasizing that such behavior did not reflect the airline's values. Alicia, her voice trembling, recounted the pain and fear she had endured. Grace, tears streaming down her face, approached Alicia. Swallowing her pride, she begged forgiveness, admitting she had judged Alicia unfairly. She blamed stress, but also recognized her deep-seated prejudices. In that moment, Alicia saw genuine regret. The entire room went still, witnessing a rare plea for redemption. With her children's hands in hers, Alicia took a breath, deciding how best to respond to Grace's heartfelt remorse. Compassion. A hush enveloped the room as Alicia lowered her gaze to her children, recalling their tearful eyes during the incident. She spoke softly, explaining how her life had been marked by countless struggles. Her voice carried the weight of love, loss, and resilience. Then, with surprising calm, she extended her hand toward Grace. "I forgive you," Alicia said, tears forming in her own eyes. "We all have battles nobody else sees. Next time, be kinder." The gravity of her words settled on everyone present. Grace, overwhelmed, bowed her head, realizing the magnitude of Alicia's mercy. Applause broke the silence as officials witnessed a profound act of unity in the face of hate. Alicia chose not to press charges. Instead, she reminded Grace to approach others with empathy. The airline vowed to implement diversity training, determined to rebuild trust with both staff and passengers. In that single moment, harsh judgments gave way to compassion. Lives were changed, proving that even in darkness, empathy has the power to heal the deepest wounds.